Ranger fans really want this team to draft Viggo Bjork at number 5. We tell you why he might be the best option available for the Blue Shirts with that pick.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1575 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Odoo. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. So a little bit of draft talk today, a little bit of free agency talk today as well. We're going to work our way to two UFAs that I think could make at least some sense for the New York Rangers. One is Mason Marchment. I think he could be a nice fit for the Blue Shirts. Also, at the end of today's episode, going to tell you why Eeli Tolvanen could be the steal of free agency season this year. But we begin with a player that many Ranger fans seem to be really high on, and they seem to want the Rangers to strongly consider, if not just outright draft at number 5 overall when the NHL draft occurs just a few days from now on Friday evening, and that would be Viggo Bjork. In recent weeks, Ranger fans have really taken to this kid as a serious option at number 5. It'll be surprising to me if he goes before that. I think the top 4 in whatever order, it's probably, not definitely, because we've been surprised before, but it's probably going to be, in some order, McKenna, Stenberg, Malhotra, and Reed. And that would leave Bjork still available at number 5 for the Rangers. But why are Ranger fans so high on Bjork? There's a lot of reasons. To begin with, the offensive upside. Now, he did just have his first year in the SHL, and these numbers are not going to blow your mind, but you got to keep in mind, Bjork is just 18 years old and playing in, the top men's league in Sweden. Nevertheless, in that league, he had 6 goals, 9 assists for a total of 15 points in 42 games. Again, you got to grade it on the curve a little bit because that is a really tough league, especially for, a teenager. But he did light it up with Sweden at the World Juniors this year. 3 goals and 6 assists in 7 games, and he helped Sweden capture the gold medal. That run also included a 4-2 win over Czechia in the gold medal game, and in that game, Bjork had 2 assists, including one on what turned out to be the game-winning goal. So he obviously delivered there. And the year prior on Sweden's J20 team, and this is where you get to the video game numbers, he had 27 goals, 47 assists, for a total of 74 points in 42 games. He was also a plus 38 in that league, and then 15 points in 9 playoff games. So I chalk up the point regression to, again, obviously playing in a really tough league, especially for a teenager, that being the SHL. And then just a couple of months ago, most recently, at the World Championships, he represented Sweden there. And that's always an interesting, competition because you've got, star NHL players in that competition whose teams are no longer in the playoffs or didn't make the playoffs at all. And then you've got young players such as Bjork, but he's out there competing against, some of the world's best. Crosby and Celebrini were both in that tournament as well. And he ends up with 1 goal and 5 assists in 8 games for Sweden. So obviously there's offensive upside. The numbers prove that. One thing Bjork does not have in his favor, which I know will scare away certain Ranger fans, but maybe not as many as I was anticipating, is size. He goes 5'9", 181 pounds. And again, for that reason, that's why it was kind of surprising to me just how many Ranger fans seem to gravitate toward Bjork and all but demand that the Rangers draft him. I've seen some comments on social media where Ranger fans are like, oh man, if the Rangers don't draft Bjork, they're morons. Let's not go nuts. We don't know how it's going to go with any of these players in the NHL draft. You think you've got a sure thing, and then that player doesn't work out. And then, late in the draft, somebody taken in the 7th round becomes, a Hall of Famer. That's pretty rare. I'll give you that, but it can happen. So you just never know for sure. But one reason why I think maybe there's kind of been a reconsideration here, not just among Ranger fans, but among, hockey fans in general, is because when it comes to size, and you look at this past year's playoffs, it's not the end-all be-all. We saw several undersized players, guys who in some cases are smaller than Bjork, really laid it up in the playoffs this past year. Guys like Quinn Hughes, guys like Logan Stankoven, and guys like Cole Caulfield among them. So it's nice to have size, particularly in the playoffs, which obviously gets a lot more physical, a lot rougher. But again, it's been proven multiple times that, it's not the end of the world. It's not a death sentence if you don't have size when it comes to the Stanley Cup playoffs. But as far as other reasons to like Bjork, I mean, the skill level is off the charts. The scouts really seem to agree here. Vision and playmaking are elite. He's an excellent passer. He can really squeeze the puck through some tight windows. And one thing that I like, and maybe it's something that I kind of slept on a little bit, didn't realize it as much, but looking at some more scouting reports today, Bjork plays a complete game of hockey. You know, he's willing to take and give hits despite his lack of size. He plays good defensive hockey. He's very good on special teams, both the power play and the penalty kill. He's got a high hockey IQ because, of course, he does. It's an ongoing joke on Locked On Rangers. Every single prospect available in every draft ever has a high hockey IQ. It's probably one of the most overused terms in sports. But with Bjork, it really does sound like it's the real deal. Again, the vision, the anticipation, the passing, the ability to squeeze the passing through tight windows, the ability to be kind of like a step ahead of the play. It's all there when it comes to Viggo Bjork. Another reason why I think that Ranger fans are gravitating toward Bjork, and I can certainly understand this as well, is the fact that he can make an immediate impact with the New York Rangers. As much as I like other prospects, guys like Schmitz and Karls at number 5, and the Rangers could take either one of those players, a defenseman, just by the very nature of the position, they don't have as much of a chance to really turn a team around as quickly as a forward does. I mean, there's exceptions. You know, we saw Matthew Schaefer this past season lay it up for the Islanders, although the Islanders missed the playoffs, so it's not like he completely resurrected that franchise. But just again, but by the very nature of the position, you're a forward, you're going to be contributing more offensively. You're going to be chipping in more in that department. Goals, assists, points. And when you pick somebody in the top 5, you're probably looking for somebody to make an immediate impact. Doesn't mean that like Schmitz or Karls wouldn't work out for the Rangers. I think either one of them certainly could and hopefully would. But you're just not going to get that immediate impact from those players the way that you would from a high-scoring forward. And that's why, you know, as we've gone through this process, I've kind of shifted my thinking. Early in the process, we're talking about the draft, and okay, the Rangers are picking number 5. Who should they get? I was kind of on team defense, you know, drafted defenseman here. But the more I've thought about this, and some of you have pointed this out as well, you know, a forward just inherently has a better chance of helping a team turn around quickly. And I think that's what the Rangers are going for, right? I mean, they said it's a retooling. So get somebody to the NHL as quickly as possible without stunting their growth and without overdoing it, because the Rangers have done that before, and get somebody like Viggo Bjork in position who has big-time offensive upside and could really just give this team a jolt. I mean, that's what the Rangers need as much as anything. This team needs a jolt. You know, everything was just so stagnant and so stale last season, really the last 2 seasons. But the biggest reason why I think people really want Bjork is you look at where they are. You look at where everything stands. And of course, there was the draft lottery, and we knew the Rangers were going to be picking 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th. No other option was on the table, and it was a worst-case scenario. They end up picking 5th. They should still end up with a good player, but obviously there's some disappointment there because we know they're not getting McKenna, and barring something completely unforeseen, they're not going to get Stenberg either. And so I think a lot of Ranger fans, and this goes back to what we were just talking about, they're looking for offensive fireworks at number 5. And who's going to give that to you? It could be Bjork. Who else could it really be? Possibly Malhotra. You know, that's at least possible. But, you know, I think the odds are better than 50-50 that he gets taken in the top 4. A lot of you guys have pointed out that, of course, Manny Malhotra, former New York Ranger, now the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks pick 3rd. Maybe they take his son there. That's at least possible as well. Either way, though, I think the odds are at least slightly against Malhotra still being there. So you look beyond those names that I just mentioned. Which forward has the most offensive upside of anybody remaining? It probably would be Viggo Bjork. As far as my rankings, again, the top 4, it's not set in stone, but I think it would be a minor upset if the top 4 in some order were not McKenna, Stenberg, Malhotra, and Reed. And so that being the case at number 5, I'm good with a lot of different players. I've mentioned before, I love Schmitz. I really like Karls a lot too. I think Bjork is certainly climb my list here. I would say that if the first 4 goes as we expect it to go, then yes, Viggo Bjork probably would become my new top pick. Although Schmitz is so tempting. And we did our Locked On mock draft not too long ago, and Malhotra was actually still available at number 5. So I felt like I had to pounce there. And that's going to be interesting. If Malhotra and Bjork are both available at number 5 to the Rangers on draft night, which one of those players would you take? I think I still lean slightly toward Malhotra, but it's kind of a toss-up for me. But I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Are you on Team Malhotra at number 5 or Team Bjork? Because I think that's pretty close, and I think that would end up a pretty close vote among Rainier fans. Now, would the Rangers actually take Bjork if he fell to them at number 5, which he probably will? We saw a report from Vince Mercogliano the other day that the Rangers were intrigued by Bjork, but that he isn't really seen as the front runner. And, just kind of looking at the lay of the land, I think the Rangers are probably going to end up taking Carson Karls because I think the top 4 is probably going to go the way that we expect it. And I just think the Rangers, they see this, do-it-all defenseman that's got some physicality, and Karls, that sounds like it's right down Drury's alley for better or worse, and I think that's probably going to be the guy. We'll see. They certainly will have some options. They could even trade down. That's still an option as well. But do I think the Rangers are going to draft Viggo Bjork number 5? If I'm being completely honest, I don't. I'd love to be wrong about that because, again, the more I read about this kid, the more I like. And maybe some of you guys have talked me into this a little bit too. But, offensive upside as far as the players that are expected to be remaining, he's the guy there at number 5. And so the Rangers really need to consider this. And I hope that they do. And they don't just blindly draft, the big physical defenseman because reasons, right? So we'll keep everything going in just a minute. I want to shift our attention to free agency. We haven't done a lot of free agent talk, but there's a couple of targets that I think could make some sense for the Rangers. Mason Marchment is one of them, at least worth consideration. We will discuss him in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos can show up fast. That's where Indeed Sponsored Jobs comes in. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach candidates who actually fit what you're looking for based on skills, experience, and location. Finding the right person can make all the difference, whether it's building a business or building a winning team. The best organizations aren't trying to look at every possible option. They're focused on identifying the people who truly match what they're looking for. When you can spend more time evaluating great candidates and less time searching, everybody benefits. That's exactly what Indeed Sponsored Jobs is designed to help businesses do. So spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is also brought to you by Odoo. Running a business should not feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know the success isn't just about talent, it's about having everyone working toward the same goal. And that's true in sports, just like it's true in business. You think about the Rangers last season, don't think about them too hard. I know it was a tough season, but the bottom line, toward the end of the season, the Rangers made a key adjustment. They started playing their homegrown prospects over some of the random veterans that were on this roster. The adjustment itself was important, but what was really impressive was how smoothly it was implemented. Everyone knew their role, everyone was on the same page, and that's usually what separates good organizations from great ones. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. All right, let's go keep everything rolling here. On Locked On New York Rangers, big shout out to the Everydayers. As always, get your daily Ranger fix completely ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club today. Start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to your team without the interruptions. Click the link in the show notes or go to lockedonnyrangers.supercast.com to claim your free trial. And for the Everydayers, we can't really go longer than maybe like 2, 3, 4 weeks at the most without Alexis Lafreniere's name coming up in trade talks. And as tough as I was on Lafreniere for parts of last season, I do not think this is the time to be trading him. We might go into greater detail on that in the next episode, barring a trade or something crazy happening with the New York Rangers. It could be a Lafreniere trade for all we know, but I don't think it's going to happen. We will see. For right now, we're going to shift our attention to some unrestricted free agents. And like I mentioned a second ago, we haven't like really gotten into like a ton of detail on this like we have in other seasons because it's difficult. It's a challenge to figure out exactly what the Rangers game plan is. But I'm just going to look at this, whether it's rebuilding, retooling, rebranding, or whatever. These are free agents on the surface that I think could make some sense for the New York Rangers. And the first one we're going to discuss today is Mason Marchment. He's now 31 years old. So this already gives me some pause because I just don't think this upcoming season the Rangers are exactly, Stanley Cup favorites. I doubt that anybody else thinks that either. And if you were to give Marchment a longer-term deal, like 5 or 6 years, which might be what it takes to get a player like this, I know that's crazy, but that might be the going rate for a Mason Marchment in this year's free agency class. If you do that, then he might be regressing by the time the Rangers are like actually ready to contend again. If the Rangers even get to the point where they're contending again while he's still under contract. So the age is a little bit of a red flag. I'll give you that. But there's other things to like. You look at his career stats. This is an undrafted player who has now played 370 games with the Leafs, Panthers, Stars, Kraken, and most recently, the second half of last season, the Columbus Blue Jackets. 95 goals, 139 assists, 234 points in 370 games, also a plus 81. This past season, like I just mentioned, he was traded from the Kraken to the Jackets, and it was sort of a tale of two seasons. He had a bigger role for the Kraken than I think he's used to having, and it sounds like there were times where, he struggled with it a little bit. But for the Kraken, 29 games, only 4 goals and 9 assists. With the Blue Jackets, 15 goals, 17 assists for a total of 32 points in 39 games. So flirting with point per game territory with the Blue Jackets. And that ended up being Marchment's most productive tenure ever with any team. And that's a good time to have it when you're about to become a free agent, an unrestricted free agent. So good on him for doing that. It's interesting, though, because the Blue Jackets, like, they were never really in a very advantageous position last season. I mean, maybe there were times where they were one of the last playoff teams. Like, if the season ends today, they'd be the 8th team in the Eastern Conference. But they ended up last season trading a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick to Seattle to get Marchment. And so if you do that and then you miss the playoffs, which they did, and then you don't re-sign that player in free agency, then you just gave away a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick for nothing. And when you consider how well he played for Columbus, I would have to imagine the Jackets are going to be in on Marchment. They're going to do what they can to try to keep him in the fold. I don't know that for sure, but you connect all the dots here, and it would certainly seem to make sense. One thing that I got to mention about Marchment as a Jacket, his shooting percentage was 20.5%, which is crazy. It's impressive. I also think it's unsustainable, although he did it for nearly half a season. So that is pretty crazy. For his career, shooting percentage is 13.1%. That's still very good. And he has averaged more than 20 goals in the last 3 seasons combined, per season. So this is somebody that can shoot the puck. And the Rangers, as we've talked about in the past, they can certainly use more of that. So that's another reason to like him as a potential free agent for the New York Rangers. As far as his contract and the cost, Marchment just finished a 4-year deal that paid him $4.5 million per season. And he's going to get an upgrade there. More on that in just a little bit. But to me, the biggest reason you target somebody like Mason Marchment is very simply the fact that he's an improvement, a big improvement on a lot of the Ranger depth forwards that this team was employing last season. If Marchment were to sign with the Rangers and end up on their 3rd line, which I think is about right for him, a 3rd line role, that's a significant upgrade on a lot of the guys that the Rangers were running out there, not just on the 3rd line, but they were putting these guys routinely in their top 6 last year. Guys like Sherry, guys like Radish, guys like Brodzinski, guys like Parson. And I'm not attacking these players. I'm just acknowledging reality here. The offensive upside with all 4 of those guys that I just mentioned is very, very limited. And Marchment, I mean, not that he has a massively high ceiling either, Marchment, but he's going to give you more than those 4. I mean, he's been doing it for all of the past 3 seasons. So he would give you more secondary scoring and just a better all-around player than any of those guys I just mentioned anyway. So he's an upgrade there. As far as physicality, I mean, he'll hit, 549 hits in 370 games. He plays with an edge, and apparently that's what the Rangers are looking for. There was talk of the Rangers and Chris Drury looking to make this team meaner and nastier this season. I mean, stop me if you've heard that before. That was actually in the same article that mentions the possibility of Alexis Lafreniere being traded. And as much as Lafreniere has struggled at times, and as tough as we've been on him on Locked On New York Rangers, if they give away Alexis Lafreniere for this year's version of Sammy Blais, I'm going to absolutely lose my mind. That cannot happen. But Drury is trying to make this team more physical. I mean, Marchment's a free agent, so you can just sign him. You don't have to give up anything to get him other than money. And, this is somebody that'll get in your face. He'll play physical. He'll get under your skin a little bit. He's a disruptive player. And the Rangers could probably use a player like that as well. I mean, they got a little bit of that right now, but you could always use a little bit more in that department. As far as his next contract, this is where it gets scary because we just saw Darren Radish, to use him as an example, get an 8-year deal at $8.5 million per season. He's only making $1 million per season, less than Adam Fox. And the reason Radish got this contract is basically because Hedman got injured for Tampa, and Radish stepped into his spot on the power play, and his offensive numbers were inflated. I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, and I don't mean to dunk on Radish or anything. Hey, maybe he'll be great for Toronto this year. We'll see. But that's a pretty crazy amount to give to a guy that has had one very good season. Before that, I mean, Darren Radish was just a guy. He was just a random guy that was in the NHL or the AHL, and now he's getting $8.5 million per season. So you see something like that, and then you look at a player like Marchment, who himself is not a superstar, but is certainly more established in his career than somebody like Darren Radish. I mean, he's going to get at least $7 million a season. You got to figure, right? I mean, do you go that high for somebody you're expecting to be a third liner? Maybe at best, he's like your 6 of 6 forwards in the top 6. It's a scary proposition. It really is. But that's the thing, though. The price of all these free agents is going to be a little bit outlandish. It's going to be a little bit scary because the cap is rising rapidly every season, and this is a weak free agent class. So teams that are looking to improve themselves, they're going to have to, pony up the dough if they want to land their chosen free agent target and outbid all the other teams. It's going to be wild. I really don't think people are prepared for what free agency is going to look like this season and just how much money some of these players are going to get and where these contracts are heading in the not too distant future here. But that's one free agent target. We got another one to talk about. It's going to be Eeli Tolvanen. I actually like him even more than Marchment, partially because I think you can get him for probably a little bit cheaper. I also think his upside is higher. I think Tolvanen has a chance to be, relative to cost, the steal of free agency season. We'll explain why in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Decagon. As companies grow, customer support gets a lot more complicated. More customers means more questions, more channels to manage, and higher expectations for fast, personalized service. That's usually where businesses start looking at AI. But most solutions either feel too generic or take forever to implement. That's where Decagon comes in. Decagon helps companies create personalized, concierge-style customer experiences with AI agents across chat, email, voice, and SMS. Their agents are available 24/7, feel natural to talk to, and can resolve customer requests on their own, helping businesses scale support without losing that personal touch. The best customer experiences do not happen by accident, whether it's business or sports. People remember organizations that respond quickly, understand context, and make every interaction feel personal. One thing I always notice about the organizations that earn long-term loyalty is that they never make you feel like just another number. Whether it's a quick response or a personalized interaction, those experiences stick with people and keep them coming back. That's what stands out to me about Decagon. Their AI helps companies deliver that same personalized experience even as they scale. Ready to transform your customer support? Go to decagon.ai/LockedOnNHL to get a personalized demo and see what Decagon can do for your team. That's DECAGON.ai/LockedOnNHL. All right, let's go wrap up today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers by shifting our attention to another potential unrestricted free agent target for this New York Ranger team, and that's going to be Eeli Tolvanen. Now, full disclosure at the top here, those of you that play in the Locked On New York Rangers Fantasy League, you'll know I've had him on my team at least twice, maybe even 3 times. He just seems to find his way to my squad one way or another. So maybe there's a little bit of bias creeping in here. He's done a nice job for my fantasy squad, but there's a lot to like here too. In some ways, we just talked about Mason Marchment. I feel like Tolvanen is kind of a cheaper version of Marchment. Now, he does play right wing as opposed to left wing, but that doesn't matter. The Rangers don't care about that, so why should we? They never have any qualms about moving guys to the other side, so it's not that big of a deal. But You look at Tolvanen, he's younger than Marchment. Tolvanen will not be 28 years old until April, and he could have a little bit more upside as well. More on that shortly. As far as his background is concerned, he was drafted in the first round, number 30 overall by Nashville in 2017. He probably has not lived up to that draft status, but still been an effective player, particularly the last couple of seasons here. You look at his career stats, he spent parts of 5 seasons with Nashville, parts of 4 seasons with Seattle, 423 games, 92 goals, 98 assists for a total of 190 points. Now, that, of course, is nothing special. You're talking less than a half point per game. However, in terms of offense, he's trending up slowly but surely. Over these last couple of seasons, it feels like there's a couple more goals, a couple more assists every single season. And it's not like this is somebody who's ancient. Like we just said, he won't be 28 until April. The last 3 seasons for Tolvanen, from least recent to most recent, he has 41 points, 35 points, and 36 points. Again, not staggering numbers, but those are the 3 highest outputs of his career. And he seems to be settling in nicely there. It's possible this is somebody who has not played the best season of his career yet, and he might finally be kind of rounding into form as a former first-round pick. He's also very physical. Now, he is just 5'10", 182 pounds, and for everyone that's going to lose their mind about that, just pretend he's 6 feet tall, because it probably makes no difference anyway. Just pretend he's 6 feet tall. You won't notice a difference when he's on the ice. But he racks up hits. 985 hits in 423 games, so he's throwing the body around out there. That includes 187 hits this past season, 237 hits the season before that, and 210 the season before that. So he's added big-time physicality to his game as well. And this dude can really shoot the puck. His shot power is in the 92nd percentile in the NHL. And we talked about it with Marchment, but the Rangers could use a sniper or two. There's nobody that you really look at and think, like, that guy's a sniper. I mean, Mika a little bit. JT Miller when he's going right, but I mean, you see him more as like, a physical power forward than I'd say a sniper. And Tolvanen can be that too, but adding a guy who shoots first to this roster, or 2 players like that, I think that would be solid. And I think Tolvanen could be a good investment. The physicality is not going to go anywhere. That's trending up. He's added more offense as the years have progressed. We just covered that. And somebody who, like Marchment, would be a significant upgrade on some of the forwards that we saw on this Ranger roster this past season. Guys that were in prominent roles for this team. And I know some people are going to be worried about signing Marchment or Tolvanen because, oh no, you're going to do that and you're bringing these veterans and they're going to block the path to playing time for some younger New York Rangers. That is, a legitimate concern. But what I would say to that is these players are, again, significant upgrades on the players that we saw, the random veterans that we saw blocking the Ranger prospects from playing last season. This is not Connor Sherry, Taylor Radish, Johnny Brodzinski, okay? And it's nothing against those players again, but these are guys that can actually step in and really contribute in a lot of different ways. And also, for anybody worried about the Ranger prospects not having a path to playing time, keep in mind, at the end of last season, the 3 players I just mentioned, Brodzinski, Sherry, Radish, all 3 of them were still on the Ranger roster. There was still room for guys like Himalash. There was still room for guys like Adam Sikora. Ty Cartier came over on waivers. Obviously, Noah Labo was there the entire season. All those guys were still in the lineup. So if the Rangers end up signing a Marchment or a Tolvanen, whichever one it is, then one of those players could take the place of one of the guys that we just mentioned. Brodzinski and Sherry are both unrestricted free agents. I don't think either one of them is coming back. Radish has 1 more year left on his deal. He should have to make the team next year. It should not be a lock. So the bottom line, a free agent signing for the Rangers, if the Rangers want to go that road and bring in a free agent who could be semi-pricey, depends on how you look at it, then said free agent can take the place of one of these random veterans and not somebody like Himalash, not somebody like Sikora, not somebody like Cartier. We can make it work. So don't get too worried about that, because I think there's a way to make that happen. But again, same thing with Marchment. The price is what scares me. Tolvanen is coming off a 2-year deal for $3.475 million per season. He's going to get an upgrade. He's going to get a pay raise. I don't know. I mean, Tolvanen, 5 years at $6 million. Would that get it done? Would that be too much? On paper, like if you were to go back, say honestly, as recent as 4 years ago, and you were giving Eeli Tolvanen this kind of contract, everybody would look at you like you're nuts. But Tolvanen has improved. He's become a better player. And on top of that, that's just what the market dictates right now, because the salary cap continues to rise significantly every passing season. And something else that I don't think people talk about a lot, NHL teams will always run out their roster with guys making the league minimum or near the league minimum. And that's another way that you can spend money. Because if you've got a couple of guys on your roster, even like 2 or 3 guys that you've got at 6 figures or the low 7 figures, that can basically be a counterbalance and allow you to spend more aggressively on the big names in free agency. But as far as whether the Rangers sign players like this, Tolvanen, Marchment, whoever it might be, there's other factors at play here too. Vincent Trocheck, we don't know what's going to happen with him. He's at $5.625 million per season, which right now, at the time it looked like it was kind of a steal. Now it's an absolute steal. But are they going to trade him? Is he still going to be here? Because if they trade him, that frees up some money. Braden Schneider, that's another X factor as well. Do the Rangers re-sign him or do they trade him? And if they re-sign him, how many years? How much money per season? How much is that going to take out of the Rangers' budget as it pertains to the salary cap? Do the Rangers think that they're going to need a ton of cap space in next year's free agency? That's a question that needs to be answered as well. I glance at next year's free agent class. There's some impressive names there, but then you always figure like these guys are just going to end up re-signing with their current team, like basically what we saw this season with all the would-be free agents. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. One more thing that I'll throw out there as far as signing a Tolvanen, signing a Marchment, the no trade clauses. Don't give them out. You can give a maximum to these guys of like 8 teams, maybe 10 teams. Any more than that, no, we're not doing it. These guys are good, solid, complementary players. They are not bona fide superstars, so they don't get the superstar treatment of the full no move clause. And those full no move clauses are wreaking havoc. It's one thing when players, maybe we'll discuss this in greater detail in a future episode, but it's one thing when players have a full no move clause for their own security and they can rest easy and they've got their family and we know we're not going to be traded. We don't have to move across the country or to a different country. That's one thing. But now we're seeing players basically weaponize these things. And we saw it with Brady Tkachuk, and he's now a member of the Panthers because he wanted to play with his brother and he wanted to be on a better team than the Senators. So it is what it is. Like I said, we can discuss that in greater detail in the future. But as far as free agents go, Tolvanen is like near the top of my list. Marchment, I like it, but it's just so hard to properly evaluate free agents for the Rangers this season because we don't know what their plan is. Like, this is the most challenging it's ever been in the history of Locked On New York Rangers because I don't think the Rangers know whether to zig or zag right now. That's basically the long and short of it. And they're probably going to end up doing like a bit of both, like moves that feel like a rebuild and then some other moves that feel like a retool. And who knows for sure? But your guys is as good as mine what the Rangers actually do when it comes to free agency this year. But we'll call it there. Thank you guys as always for tuning in. Make sure to follow us on literally every social media service that you can possibly think of. We're on Twitter, we're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Blue Sky. Definitely feel free to follow along with all of those. Thank you guys as always for tuning in, and I will see you next time.